Solomon warned, "This is how the truly rich think." The wisdom of history's wealthiest and wisest king. The king who had everything. King Solomon possessed wealth beyond modern comprehension. His annual income exceeded 25 tons of gold, equivalent to billions in today's currency. His palace took 13 years to build, employing the finest craftsmen from across the known world. Ships brought him exotic goods from distant lands: ivory, apes, peacocks, and precious stones. His throne was made of pure gold, and his drinking vessels were all golden because silver was considered too common for his court. Yet Solomon's greatest treasure was not his material wealth but his wisdom about wealth itself. Having experienced both the intoxicating heights of unlimited riches and the sobering realities of their limitations, Solomon understood the psychology of wealth in ways that few humans ever have. His warnings about money, his insights into the mind of the rich, and his principles for true prosperity have guided wise individuals for 3 millennia. This is not merely academic wisdom but battle-tested insight from someone who lived at the very pinnacle of human wealth and power. Solomon's teachings reveal the fundamental differences between how the poor think about money, how the middle class pursues it, and how the truly rich understand and manage it. Chapter 1. The Foundation of Rich Thinking. Wealth as a tool, not a goal. Solomon's first and most crucial insight about wealthy thinking is that the truly rich view money as a tool rather than an end goal. While the poor often think about money in terms of immediate needs and the middle class focuses on accumulation for security, the wealthy understand money as an instrument for creating value, solving problems, and generating more wealth. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, Solomon observed in Proverbs, recognizing that wealth provides options, protection, and power that poverty cannot offer. However, he also warned that he who trusts in his riches will fall, understanding that wealth becomes dangerous when viewed as the ultimate source of security, rather than as a tool to be wisely employed. The truly rich think systematically about money. They understand cash flow, appreciate the time value of money, and recognize that wealth is built through assets that produce income, rather than through high-paying jobs or lottery tickets. They think in terms of decades and generations rather than months and years. This long-term perspective fundamentally shapes how wealthy individuals make decisions. They are willing to sacrifice immediate gratification for long-term gain, invest in education and relationships that may not pay off for years, and build systems that can generate wealth even when they are not actively working. The power of delayed gratification. Solomon understood that the ability to delay gratification separates the wealthy from the poor, more than any other single factor. "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty," he wrote, identifying patience and planning as essential characteristics of wealthy thinking. The poor often think in terms of immediate consumption. When they receive money, their first instinct is to spend it on pressing needs or immediate desires. The middle class may save for specific goals but often struggle with the discipline required for long-term wealth building. The truly rich, however, have mastered the art of delayed gratification. They understand that every dollar spent on consumption is a dollar that cannot be invested to generate future wealth. They make consumption decisions based on long-term financial impact rather than immediate emotional satisfaction. This does not mean they live as misers, but rather that they spend intentionally and strategically. Solomon himself demonstrated this principle throughout his reign. Rather than simply enjoying his inherited wealth, he invested heavily in trade relationships, infrastructure projects, and wisdom that would generate returns for generations. His port at Ezion-Geber, his alliance with Hiram of Tyre, and his development of trade routes all reflected long-term thinking that multiplied his wealth exponentially. Understanding value creation. Perhaps most importantly, Solomon recognized that sustainable wealth comes from creating value for others. His trading empire succeeded because it provided genuine value to participants. His wisdom attracted visitors who paid handsomely for his insights. His building projects employed thousands and created infrastructure that benefited his entire kingdom. The truly rich understand that wealth is not a zero-sum game where one person's gain requires another's loss. Instead, they focus on creating win-win scenarios where everyone benefits. They solve problems, meet needs, and provide services that others value highly enough to pay for willingly. This value creation mindset sets wealthy thinkers apart from those who view wealth as something to be extracted or taken from others. They look for opportunities to serve, to innovate, and to improve the lives of others, understanding that such service is the most reliable path to sustainable wealth. Chapter 2. The Wealthy Mindset Toward Risk and Opportunity. Calculated risk versus reckless gambling. Solomon warned against both excessive caution and reckless risk-taking. "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap," he observed, noting that excessive fear of risk can prevent wealth creation. Simultaneously, he cautioned against hasty decisions and get-rich-quick schemes. The truly rich have a sophisticated understanding of risk that differs markedly from how others approach it. They do not avoid risk but rather seek to understand, measure, and manage it. They distinguish between intelligent risks that offer asymmetric upside potential and foolish gambles that can destroy wealth. Wealthy thinkers diversify their risks across multiple investments, business ventures, and income streams. They understand that some investments will fail, but they structure their portfolios so that their successes more than compensate for their losses. They also invest in their own education and skills, recognizing that human capital is often the most important and least risky investment they can make. Solomon demonstrated this principle through his diverse business interests. He did not rely solely on inherited wealth or a single source of income. Instead, he developed multiple revenue streams: international trade, domestic production, taxation, and gifts from foreign dignitaries. This diversification protected his wealth from any single economic downturn or political change. Opportunity recognition. The wealthy possess what Solomon called a discerning heart, the ability to recognize opportunities that others miss. This skill comes partly from experience and knowledge, but also from a particular way of thinking about problems and possibilities. While the poor often see only obstacles and limitations, the wealthy train themselves to see opportunities in every challenge. Economic downturns create opportunities to buy assets at discounted prices. Regulatory changes create new markets and business models. Technological advances create entirely new industries and wealth creation possibilities. Solomon's own life exemplified this opportunity-minded thinking. When the Queen of Sheba visited to test his wisdom, he did not merely answer her questions but used the encounter to establish profitable trade relationships. When neighboring kingdoms sought his judgment in disputes, he leveraged these requests into diplomatic and commercial advantages. The truly rich also understand timing, what Solomon called a time for every activity under heaven. They recognize when to enter markets, when to exit positions, and when to be patient. This sense of timing comes from deep market knowledge, careful observation, and often years of experience making both good and bad decisions. Network effects and relationship capital. Solomon understood that wealth is not built in isolation but through relationships with other capable individuals. His proverbs repeatedly emphasize the value of wise counselors, reliable partners, and trustworthy associates. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed, he wrote. The truly rich think systematically about building and maintaining networks of relationships with other successful individuals. They understand that who you know often matters as much as what you know. They invest time and energy in developing relationships with people who can provide knowledge, opportunities, capital, or strategic partnerships. This networking is not merely transactional but based on genuine value creation and mutual benefit. Wealthy individuals seek to help others in their network succeed, understanding that rising tides lift all boats. They share opportunities, provide introductions, offer advice, and collaborate on projects that benefit everyone involved. Solomon's own network included kings, queens, merchants, craftsmen, and wise men from across the known world. He maintained these relationships through hospitality, fair dealing, and mutual respect. His international connections provided access to exotic goods, new technologies, and political intelligence that enhanced his wealth and power. Chapter 3: The Psychology of Abundance versus Scarcity. Abundance thinking. One of Solomon's most profound insights about wealthy thinking concerns the fundamental mindset difference between abundance and scarcity thinking. The poor and middle class often operate from a scarcity mindset, believing that resources are limited and that they must compete for a fixed pie. The truly rich, however, think from abundance, understanding that wealth can be created and that there are virtually unlimited opportunities for those who know how to recognize and pursue them. This abundance mindset affects every aspect of how wealthy individuals approach life and business. They are generous with their knowledge, connections, and resources because they believe that giving creates more opportunities than hoarding. They invest in the success of others because they understand that everyone's success contributes to overall economic growth and opportunity creation. Solomon demonstrated abundance thinking throughout his reign. Rather than hoarding his wisdom, he shared it freely with visitors from around the world. Rather than keeping his wealth locked away, he invested it in projects that employed thousands and created lasting value. His generosity became legendary, not because he was careless with money, but because he understood that generous giving often generates more wealth than tight-fisted saving. Long-term perspective versus short-term thinking. The truly rich think in terms of decades and generations rather than months and years. This long-term perspective influences every decision they make, from investment choices to business strategies to personal relationships. They are willing to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains, and to invest in projects that may not pay off for years. Solomon's building projects exemplified this long-term thinking. The temple took 7 years to build, and his palace took 13 years. These were not quick return on investment projects but long-term investments in the kingdom's prestige, economic development, and spiritual foundation. Similarly, his investment in wisdom and education paid dividends throughout his 40-year reign and beyond. This long-term perspective also affects how wealthy individuals think about money management. They focus on growing their wealth over time rather than on quick profits. They understand compound interest and the power of reinvestment. They are willing to live below their means in order to invest the difference for future growth. Systems thinking versus event thinking.
The poor often think in terms of events: getting a job, receiving a paycheck, paying bills, buying something they want. The middle class may think in terms of goals: saving for a house, planning for retirement, building an emergency fund. The truly rich, however, think in terms of systems, creating processes and structures that can generate wealth automatically and sustainably. Solomon built systems for international trade, domestic production, tax collection, and wealth management. These systems could function even when he was not personally overseeing them, allowing his wealth to grow continuously. He understood that systems are more powerful than individual efforts because they can scale beyond personal limitations. Wealthy individuals create systems for every aspect of their financial lives. They systematize their investing, their business operations, their networking, and even their charitable giving. They understand that well-designed systems can produce consistent results with minimal ongoing effort, freeing them to focus on higher-level strategy and new opportunities. Chapter 4. Wisdom about money management. The principle of stewardship. Solomon understood wealth as a form of stewardship, rather than absolute ownership. This perspective shaped how he thought about earning, spending, saving, and giving money. He saw himself as a temporary custodian of resources that could be used to create value for his kingdom and future generations. This stewardship mindset affects how truly wealthy individuals approach money management. They make decisions based on long-term impact rather than immediate gratification. They consider how their financial choices will affect their families, their communities, and future generations. They take seriously the responsibility that comes with wealth. The stewardship perspective also influences how wealthy individuals think about risk. They are conservative with the core of their wealth while being aggressive with portions they can afford to lose. They understand that preserving wealth is often more challenging than creating it, and that sustainable wealth requires careful management and wise decision-making. Multiple income streams. Solomon derived income from numerous sources: international trade, domestic taxation, agricultural production, mining operations, and gifts from foreign visitors. This diversification protected his wealth from any single economic disruption and provided multiple opportunities for growth. The truly rich understand the importance of developing multiple income streams. They do not rely solely on employment income or even on a single business. Instead, they create portfolios of income-generating assets that can include real estate, business investments, royalties, dividends, and other sources. This diversification strategy reduces risk while increasing opportunity. If one income stream declines, others can compensate. The goal is to create a stable foundation of income that can support lifestyle expenses while generating additional capital for new investments. The power of compound growth. Perhaps no concept is more central to wealthy thinking than compound growth. The ability of money to earn returns on previous returns, creating exponential growth over time. Solomon understood this principle and applied it throughout his financial life, reinvesting profits from trade into expanded operations and new opportunities. The truly rich structure their finances to maximize compound growth opportunities. They reinvest profits rather than consuming them. They understand that small differences in return rates can create enormous differences in long-term wealth when compounded over time. They are patient enough to allow compound growth to work its magic over decades. This focus on compound growth affects every financial decision wealthy individuals make. They choose investments based on long-term growth potential rather than short-term income. They minimize taxes and fees that can erode compound returns. They start investing as early as possible to maximize the time available for compounding. Chapter 5. The dangers of wealth. The trap of luxury. Despite his enormous wealth, Solomon understood the dangers that money could pose to character and judgment. He warned that luxury could become a trap, creating addiction to ever-increasing levels of consumption and comfort. In Ecclesiastes, he reflected on how the pursuit of pleasure and possessions ultimately proved meaningless and unsatisfying. The truly rich understand that lifestyle inflation can be as dangerous as poverty. They recognize that increasing spending to match increasing income prevents wealth accumulation and creates dependency on high levels of income. They consciously choose to live below their means, regardless of how much they earn. This does not mean wealthy individuals live like paupers, but rather that they make conscious choices about spending. They spend money on things that truly add value to their lives, while avoiding waste and conspicuous consumption that serves only to impress others. They understand that true wealth is measured by net worth, not by lifestyle display. The isolation of success. Solomon also warned about the isolation that wealth can create. Success can separate individuals from honest feedback, genuine relationships, and accurate understanding of reality. Wealthy people often find themselves surrounded by those who tell them what they want to hear, rather than what they need to hear. The truly rich work consciously to maintain connections with reality, and with people who will provide honest feedback. They seek out advisors who are not financially dependent on them, and who have the courage to disagree when necessary. They maintain relationships with people from diverse backgrounds and economic circumstances. This commitment to staying grounded requires intentional effort. Wealth naturally creates barriers between individuals and the experiences of ordinary people. The truly rich work to overcome these barriers through conscious relationship building, ongoing education, and regular reality checks. The responsibility of wealth. Solomon understood that wealth creates responsibilities as well as opportunities. Those who possess significant resources have obligations to use them wisely, to create value for others, and to contribute to the common good. This sense of responsibility shapes how wealthy individuals think about their money and their role in society. The truly rich embrace this responsibility, rather than avoiding it. They understand that their success has been built on foundations provided by society, infrastructure, education, legal systems, and economic institutions. They recognize an obligation to contribute to maintaining and improving these foundations for future generations. This responsibility is expressed through various means: job creation, business innovation, charitable giving, political engagement, and community leadership. Wealthy individuals understand that their resources give them unique opportunities to solve problems and create positive change. Chapter 6. Investment Philosophy of the Wealthy. Quality over quantity. Solomon's approach to wealth building emphasized quality over quantity in all forms of investment. Rather than acquiring many mediocre assets, he focused on fewer, higher quality investments that could generate superior returns over time. His trade relationships were with the most reliable partners. His building projects employed the finest craftsmen. His investment in wisdom sought the best teachers and advisors available. The truly rich apply this quality-focused approach to all their investments. They prefer to own smaller stakes in excellent businesses rather than large stakes in mediocre ones. They choose investments based on fundamental value and long-term potential rather than on short-term price movements or popular trends. This quality focus extends beyond financial investments to include investments in relationships, education, and personal development. Wealthy individuals understand that the quality of their human capital often determines the quality of their financial returns. They invest heavily in developing their own skills and knowledge and in building relationships with other high-quality individuals. Patience and discipline. Solomon's wealth building required extraordinary patience and discipline. His major projects took years or decades to complete. His trade relationships were built slowly over time. His investment in wisdom was a lifelong commitment that required daily study and application. The truly rich understand that building significant wealth requires both patience and discipline. They are willing to wait for the right opportunities rather than forcing poor investments. They stick to their investment strategies even when markets are volatile or when others are panicking. They maintain discipline in their spending and saving habits regardless of their current income level. This patience and discipline often separate successful investors from unsuccessful ones. Many people know what they should do financially, but lack the emotional discipline to do it consistently over time. The truly rich develop this discipline through practice, education, and often through painful experience with the consequences of impatience. Contrarian thinking. Solomon often acted contrary to conventional wisdom, and this contrarian approach contributed significantly to his success. When others saw problems, he saw opportunities. When others avoided risk, he carefully calculated and managed it. When others followed trends, he created new paths. The truly rich develop the ability to think independently and to act contrary to popular opinion when their analysis suggests it is appropriate. They understand that extraordinary returns often come from doing what others are unwilling or unable to do. They buy when others are selling and sell when others are buying. This contrarian thinking requires both courage and conviction. It means being willing to appear wrong in the short term in order to be right in the long term. It requires confidence in one's own analysis and judgment, combined with the humility to change course when new information suggests a different approach. Chapter 7. The Wealth Builder's Daily Habits. Continuous Learning. Solomon was famous for his commitment to continuous learning. He studied everything from biology to international relations, from poetry to engineering. This commitment to learning was not merely intellectual curiosity, but a practical understanding that knowledge creates wealth-building opportunities. The truly rich maintain this commitment to continuous learning throughout their lives. They read extensively, seek out expert advice, attend educational events, and learn from their mistakes. They understand that in a rapidly changing world, knowledge becomes obsolete quickly, and continuous learning is essential for maintaining and growing wealth. This learning extends beyond formal education to include practical experience, relationship building, and skill development. Wealthy individuals actively seek out new experiences and challenges that can expand their knowledge and capabilities. They view every situation as an opportunity to learn something valuable. Strategic planning. Solomon was known for his strategic thinking and long-term planning. He did not simply react to events, but anticipated future challenges and opportunities. His wisdom literature emphasizes the importance of planning, preparation, and strategic thinking in all areas of life. The truly rich spend significant time on strategic planning for their financial lives. They set long-term goals, develop detailed plans for achieving those goals, and regularly review and adjust their strategies based on changing circumstances. They understand that without clear goals and plans, wealth building becomes random and ineffective. This strategic planning includes both offensive and defensive elements. Wealthy individuals plan for growth opportunities while also preparing for potential setbacks. They develop contingency plans for various scenarios and maintain flexibility to adapt their strategies as conditions change. Network maintenance. Solomon understood that relationships were among his most valuable assets. He invested significant time and energy in maintaining relationships with other leaders, merchants, craftsmen, and wise individuals. These relationships provided access to information, opportunities, and resources that would have been unavailable otherwise. The truly rich prioritize relationship building and maintenance as essential activities for wealth creation and preservation.
They understand that business is fundamentally about relationships, and that success often depends more on who you know than on what you know. This network maintenance is not merely social but strategic. Wealthy individuals carefully cultivate relationships with people who can provide value and to whom they can provide value in return. They maintain these relationships through regular communication, mutual assistance, and shared experiences. Chapter 8: Money and Character.
Integrity as foundation. Throughout his wisdom literature, Solomon emphasized that integrity is the foundation of sustainable success. He understood that short-term gains achieved through dishonest means ultimately lead to long-term losses. His reputation for wisdom and fairness was itself a valuable asset that attracted people and opportunities from around the world. The truly rich understand that integrity is not just morally important but financially essential. Reputation takes years to build but can be destroyed in moments. Business is built on trust, and trust is built on consistent integrity over time. Wealthy individuals protect their reputations as carefully as they protect their financial assets. This commitment to integrity affects every aspect of how wealthy individuals conduct business. They honor their commitments, treat partners fairly, and maintain high ethical standards even when it costs them money in the short term. They understand that integrity creates long-term value that far exceeds any short-term costs. Generosity and wisdom. Solomon was known for his generosity, but his giving was strategic and purposeful rather than careless or emotional. He understood that wise generosity could create relationships, solve problems, and generate goodwill that would benefit his kingdom for generations. The truly rich approach charitable giving with the same strategic thinking they apply to their investments. They give generously but thoughtfully, focusing on causes where their contributions can create maximum impact. They understand that effective giving requires as much skill and knowledge as effective investing. This strategic approach to generosity extends beyond charitable giving to include business relationships, community involvement, and political engagement. Wealthy individuals understand that their resources give them unique opportunities to solve problems and create positive change, and they embrace these opportunities as both privileges and responsibilities. Humility and wisdom. Despite his enormous success, Solomon maintained a sense of humility about his achievements and limitations. He understood that wisdom comes from recognizing what you do not know, and from continuing to learn throughout life. This humility was itself a source of wisdom and continued success. The truly rich cultivate humility as an essential character trait for continued success. They understand that overconfidence can lead to costly mistakes, and that maintaining a learning mindset is essential for adapting to changing circumstances. They seek out advisors who will challenge their thinking and provide honest feedback. This humility also extends to their relationship with money itself. Wealthy individuals understand that money is a tool rather than a measure of personal worth. They do not define themselves by their net worth but rather by their character, relationships, and contributions to others. Chapter 9: Building Generational Wealth. Beyond personal success. Solomon's wealth building was not just about personal enrichment but about creating lasting value for his kingdom and future generations. He invested in infrastructure, education, and institutions that would benefit people long after his death. This generational thinking shaped every major decision he made. The truly rich think beyond their own lifetimes when building and managing wealth. They create structures and systems that can preserve and grow wealth across generations. They invest in their children's education and character development. They build businesses and institutions that can outlast their own involvement. This generational thinking requires a different approach to wealth management than that focused solely on personal consumption or even personal accumulation. It involves creating trusts, foundations, and other structures that can manage wealth responsibly across generations. It requires teaching children and grandchildren the principles and skills necessary for wise wealth management. Teaching financial wisdom. Solomon understood that wisdom must be transmitted from one generation to the next or it will be lost. His proverbs and other writings were designed to teach timeless principles that could guide future generations in all areas of life, including financial management. The truly rich take seriously their responsibility to teach financial wisdom to their children and other young people. They understand that inheriting money without inheriting wisdom often leads to wealth destruction rather than wealth preservation.